Analog thoughts.
Analog thoughts.
Analog thoughts.
Analog thoughts. Analog thoughts.
Analog thoughts.
New year, new me, new year, new me, new year, new me, 'cause it's a new me and a new year, and we're here, let's go, new year, new me. New Year's resolutions. Mine are to remember that every day is a gift that should be truly cherished. And also, I wasn't super kind to my body in 2024. I skipped too many meals, I skipped too many sleeps, and I spent too much time staring into a computer screen. And I'm going to try and work on balance this year and learn how to combine my passions with a more healthy lifestyle that just makes more sense. Also, I'm a goddamn perfectionist, and sometimes I feel like that perfectionism can hinder my creative output. And this year I'm really going to try and focus on not letting the tiny details in music and art and podcasts and everything get me tripped up. I'm going to try to let some things creatively go so that I can focus on the bigger picture a little bit. Not that I'm like super OCD about things, but in some contexts I am. And sometimes it's been more bad, or not bad, but sometimes it's been more of like something holding me back than pushing me forward. So I'm going to try and focus on not letting the little details bother me so much. If you haven't noticed, I'm a bit nasally. I have a little bit of a head cold going on. I feel like I can't catch a freaking break. I got some kind of stomach thing a little while back, and then I had another ailment, and now I have a head cold. So 2025 is coming in hot. I took some time off for the holidays because Christmas came in, and I just felt like it was time to dial it back. I could have done an episode, but it probably would have been really like half-assed and just kind of not half-assed, but like it would have been rushed. And I was like, is that really the move? I should probably just focus on getting things ready for the holidays and chilling with family, and not like push myself super hard to make an episode that's like meh, whatever. So I took some time off. But that's what the holidays are for too, taking some time off and being with your friends and family. For New Year's Eve, I played a show at Otherworld, which, if you're not familiar with what Otherworld is, if you've ever heard of Meow Wolf, it's basically a version of Meow Wolf. It's a giant indoor art installation, like an immersive art installation, and you go from room to room and you walk through these different environments, and it's very interactive. There's like all of the art installations have lights or things you can like crawl through or walk through, and lots of different styles all converging into one cohesive, immersive art experience. It's really cool. But I played a show there with my friend Tyler, aka his producer name is Yeti. But we did this back-to-back set of live. I guess it wasn't a back-to-back. It was a set where we did all live looping music, and it was all improvised with keyboards and drum machines, and we did it in this psychedelic forest type place inside of Otherworld, where there's all these dangling tree limbs and dangling like alien egg sacs, and there was like projection mapping on the walls. It was really cool. And then after we did that set, which I think went over really well. There were some hiccups, but it was our first time ever doing anything like that live. So I think overall it went over really well, and we got a really good response from people. We just tried to keep things like minimal and funky, and I think it was really engaging for people. But after that, I did 2.5 hours of visuals, which was really, it was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. And that's how I rang in the new year, was at Otherworld. And then 2 days after that, I had another show. So I've been preparing for shows and doing some shows. And yeah, the other show was really nice too. It was here in Dayton, so it was very close and super close. And everyone crushed it. It was a friend of mine's first show. He did a great job. And it was also another super artful experience. The people who brought out the live visuals brought out all these tube TVs and stacked up all these tube TVs and then layered footage of the crowd that they were recording and old like video footage over top of another guy's visuals that were him dropping like ink into water, and then that was being captured by by an overhead projector, and then they were combining the two video feeds together and morphing them live. It was very cool, and everyone did a live performance too. It was all like improvisational live, very much, well, still kind of prepared, but very much just like feeling the vibe of the room and feeding off the vibe of the room. Yeah, Felix update. Felix was sick as well, but now he's back on track and he's thriving. And he had a great Christmas. You know, a 2-year-old at Christmas, a 2.5-ish-year-old. He got a ton of presents. We got him this big wheel, and I put it together Christmas Eve and put it under the Christmas tree. And then he came down and like saw it, and I was like, "Is he gonna know what to do? Is he gonna know to like sit on it?" Because he had never been on a big wheel before, but he knew immediately. He was like, "I know what this is. There's no questions here. I know exactly what this is." And he got on and started just like zooming around our house on this big wheel. I feel like there's something probably just in the core of our souls that we know what to do with a big wheel when we see a big wheel. We're like, that's for me, that's for riding. It's time to ride. Let's go. It was hilarious and amazing. I'm also I have a huge to-do list for 2025, just like the rest of us, but I'm also getting him swim lessons. It's at the top of my list. I got to get that boy swimming because he loves water. And one of our relatives was gracious enough to pay for a YMCA membership for us for some months this year. And it's winter, at least right now. This huge snowstorm just blew in Southwest Ohio, so we are covered in like I don't even know. Yeah, I don't even know. It's like it looks at least like probably like 8 inches of snow. I would say somewhere between over 6, but maybe over 6, but less than 10. Let's just say that. Might be 10. I don't know. It's a lot of snow. I'm not going outside today unless I have to, but we'll see. Just a couple more things before we get actually started on the show today. Make sure you leave a comment, leave a review, share the show, tell a friend. Also, I've got a Patreon where I share early access to this podcast and early access to other things. I really plan on ramping up my Patreon content this year. It's another thing that's on my to-do list. So get in now and let those goodies unfold for you more as we move into 2025. I plan on sharing more art, more content over on the Patreon, just overall. And then one final small note thing. You may have also noticed my microphone is a little different. I've got a new setup, and I am trying out a new microphone setup and a new way that I process audio, because I noticed that on Spotify and some of the other platforms, they don't handle super loud audio very well. So honestly, I've turned things down just a hair, and that's because I don't want any weird artifacts or glitches or anything. I went back and replaced a couple audio files on a couple of loud episodes just because they were slightly problematic, and from here on out I'm not going to push the microphone so hard. So it's going to be a little quieter, but that's because I will always choose audio clarity over volume. And when I've compared this episode to some like bigger podcasts, like big podcasters, I'm like, dang, they actually don't push their volume super hard either. Their signal's very clean and it sounds great. But I think they too run into that conundrum where Spotify processes just audio files when it's not music. They process them in a different way, especially really long vocal audio files are processed in a different way. And I won't get lost too much in the weeds here, but as a musician, this is a constant struggle with music, and I've overcome that struggle for the most part, because like with a 3-minute audio track that's just a song, I pour countless hours into the subtle details of every part of the audio, and I make sure it comes out super crystal clear. It's easy to make it sound good. But with streaming services and handling podcasts that are like an hour or an hour and a half long sometimes, it's a whole different ballgame on how I process them and how the platform processes them. But anyway, looking to make that crispy, beautiful, lush, robust, just all around nice sound in 2025. Not that we weren't before, but it can always be better. It can always be better. So over the next few episodes, I'm gonna experiment with dialing it in and getting it right into the pocket where I feel like it needs to be moving forward. So this episode will be the first of that. So if you notice any small little technical flim-flams or artifacts, just disregard those. If that happens, I'll probably be replacing the audio file on this episode. But like I said, it's 2025. I'm not gonna overthink the tiny, tiny details so much. Here I go again. Here it goes again. Anyway, super huge tangent there. Let's get right into it. Let's get into the last 100 years of technology. This episode's going to be a bit loose. I'm going to talk in general how far technology has come over the last century, and really kind of like reflect on how it's changed, because that's kind of what we do at the beginning of a year or at the ending of a year. We do this introspective, retrospective, like hyperspective, global spective thing where we analyze what went well, what went wrong, how far we've come, and how far we're trying to go. So I thought it would be kind of cool to do that on a broader scale with technology specifically, because I love technology. So just keep in mind, I won't be getting hyper specific on dates and facts. More so, this is just my general thoughts on technology over the last decade or so. If you're looking for a bit more of the nitty gritty on what sort of technologies were developed in the early part of the century, stick around though, because a little later in the show, I will have a list of early inventions that gets a little more into that kind of stuff. But for the most part, I'm just going to be rambling. I'm going to be riffing. And this is just generally going to be, I'm going to be getting into some tomfoolery on this episode. So strap in, get cozy, and let's go. Back in 1925, 100 years ago, we didn't have anything that resembles computers like we have today. Probably most of the people listening to this are walking around with technology in their pockets that is more powerful than all of the technology on the planet in 1925. It's more powerful than anything they had combined technology-wise in 1925. Just one single person today has more than that they carry around every day. We all have literal supercomputers that can translate languages, take videos, solve complex equations, navigate us to places. They can connect to a global system of information that can teach you about literally anything. It is insane. And it's all really just happened in a lifespan, within a lifespan ago. I think that's safe to say. Like 100 years is about a lifespan. It's on the long end of a lifespan, but it's the lifespan of a human nonetheless. We've gone from no computers to everyone possessing a tiny supercomputer in their pocket within the span of one human life. In the early 1900s, we were getting inventions like the traffic signal and Band-Aids and very, very early versions of television, which these were all great things. I'm not over here poo-pooing on these things at all, but when you use them as a reference point to what we're working with now, Holy smokes. We have come a long, long way. We've got robots on the surface of Mars sending us high-res videos. So from the invention of traffic signals to highly sophisticated space robots on other planets, it's just been 100 years. It's been actually been less than 100 years. And we can only imagine where we're going to be in the next 100 years. I genuinely think we will be opening up portals to different dimensions. In all seriousness, all jokes aside, I think we're going to be opening up doorways into worlds that we don't even understand, worlds that we never imagined. Part of that is happening now with Google's quantum AI team. They have suggested that their new quantum chip, Willow, may be able to perform calculations across parallel universes. And this isn't like some deep Reddit conspiracy forum portal that I'm in. This is legitimate news that is happening right now. You can just Google's quantum chip Willow. Just Google Willow, I bet, and things will pop up. But the leader of Google's quantum AI team explicitly linked Willow's success to the multiverse, suggesting that quantum computation's extraordinary power could be a direct result of interactions across parallel dimensions. And this is news from December of 2024. So this is like happening currently. I know we're into January now, but it's insane. Google has already come out right now and said, "Hey, we think that we think that our super high-powered computers that we don't really understand how they work and where they get their energy, like in their computational power. We're pretty sure that they're tapping into energy sources from the multiverse and parallel dimensions." Like, what? That should be at the top of the news feed. That is insane to me. Well, look it up. Look it up, right? It comes from people that are much infinitely smarter than me. They're claiming that the microchips are making calculations beyond human comprehension and are potentially tapping into unknown energy resources. And just think about that for a minute. And now, flash forward 100 years, and everyone's like, everyone will be saying like, they'll be saying, of course, our computers are using an infinite pool of resources flowing from an infinite multiverse to power the quantum computers. Duh. How else would they do it? That's of course that's how it works. It'll be like an everyday conversation. People will be like, "Oh, my supercomputer can tap into dimension 26K. Yours can only tap into dimension 14Z. Wow, you've really got an outdated model." It'll be like 4G and 5G. Like, what dimension can your device tap into? How deep into the multiverse can it get? How powerful can it become? Oh, you've got like last month's model? Yeah, no, that can only tap into just a fraction of the multiverses my computer can tap into. That's old. That's an old computer you got there. Or chip. That's an old chip in your brain. You need a new implant, bro. It's like it's like trying to explain smartphones, how smartphones work to someone in the 1920s. Like, they would have it would be so hard for them to comprehend. We'd be like, yeah, duh. Of course we have limitless wireless access to all of the world's information in our pockets at all times. And navigation and translation tools and a flashlight and a camera and games and countless other things. They'd be like, "What? What do you mean? Like, what? What?" It would be such a science fiction concept to them. That's the kind of stuff we're going to be interacting with at the end of the next 100 years. We've come a very, very, very long way, and I hope to be around for at least a little while longer while we explore more facets of this interesting reality. I want to witness AI fully waking up and opening the portal to the multiverse. Hopefully, they bring through the machine elves. We can all have our pineal glands polished and dance to their beautiful flute music, and their mystic binary envelops us, and we sit with them and drink their sweet nectar from the multiverse. Machine elves will bring you all the nectar from the multiverse, and you will drink it first. Because I don't know why they're Irish. I just assume maybe. Anyway, I'm ready. I'm ready for the machine elves to open the multiverse dimension and come here via the AI technologies. But I digress. Let's talk about automation. And this is where there is certainly room for improvement. With all this new tech, at first we were all like, hell yeah, let the robots take all the stupid jobs no humans should be doing. Let them pull the car parts out of the oven and mix the concrete to get poured 1,000 feet in the air to build things where people can't die. We'll have robots do it. But wouldn't you know it, the robots and AI showed up and took over the creative sector first. And it's really a plot twist. Instead of doing the jobs that humans really didn't want to do, like meticulously assembling car parts and baubles and trinkets on a factory line, they became artists and writers and video makers. And they invaded the creative world strong over the last 2 to 3 years. But I'm happy to see a pushback. And don't get me wrong, I love emerging technologies, and I'm certainly not afraid of what emerging technologies have to offer. But what I don't want to see is AI taking creative jobs from humans. And I think there is potential to work with it to enhance art and celebrate the human experience, but we also can't let corporations weaponize AI in a way where they are cutting out the potential jobs of humans. And that is what they are currently doing. They are automating advertisements and logos and design work and video work by using AI. And the dark part is all this AI is trained off of images and videos that are created by artists who never consented to have their work used. And there isn't really a system of checks and balances. So now that's why we're seeing this big pushback. Like, people are saying, hey, if you use AI art, I don't want to associate with anything you have to offer because I don't approve of the way that it's generated. I don't approve of the way that what's the word I'm looking for? It takes advantage of other artists' hard work. And I'm guilty of using AI art when it first arrived on the scene for some things. I thought it was cool. I was like, oh, this is awesome. The idea of working with a robot to make new art and to help design things. And I was like, this is sick. Like, we're entering this new phase of artwork. And I still feel like we are, or this new phase of creation. And I still feel like we are. But then I read some things and thought about it and listened to other artists and realized, like, oh, this is actually really messed up. This is really not a good thing. And we got to figure out how to interact with this in a way that prioritizes the artist's, the creation of human art and doesn't exploit artists, which is where we're at now. And we really need to figure out how this is going to work, because if we don't, it's just going to snowball and the corporations will continue to take advantage of artists, and it will be a bad thing. And again, I'm not saying using AI is bad. It's honestly an inevitability. It's part of the future. We have no choice. The thing is awake. It's here. There's no going back. But we need to be really aware of how we interact with it and how we use it to automate things, especially art. And once again, this comes back to trying to explain any of this to someone who lives in the 1920s. Can you imagine, like, Yeah, so basically there's a limitless repository of human artwork stored in a digital space, in a cloud, that's being fed to robots to make new artwork. But some people have problems with that because corporations that own the robots didn't ask the creators of the artwork to use it. And there's this big conundrum, and they'd just be like, "What are you talking about?" None of that would make sense to them. They'd be like, "I don't understand what you just said. I don't understand that sentence." And in the future, that's going to be in 100 years, we'll have problems like that too. That we don't even understand the problem at all. It's not funny, but it is kind of funny. It's just interesting to imagine what kind of technologies will exist in 100 years and what sort of problems will arise from that. Back in 1924, humans invented the self-winding wristwatch. And they also did this thing in the 1920s where they could play music on a wire. Basically, take the concept of a vinyl record where there are tiny little grooves etched into the wax that a needle runs over to generate sound, and apply that to a spool of wire that runs across a piece of metal. It didn't sound great. It didn't really sound good, but it made sound. It was like one of the earliest forms of reproducing recorded sound. And now we have all that. Now we have access to all the songs in the world in our pockets at all times, streaming at relatively high quality. I'll say it again. The technology that we're going to have in the next 100 years will be so mind-blowing. We can't even imagine it yet. And like, really just think of the craziest thing you can imagine, and it will probably be like close to that, if not crazier than that. I've got this episode, shameless plug here, but I have this episode where I talk about a Dyson sphere. If you want to learn more about that, I suggest you give that episode a listen. It's called Future Energy. But basically, a Dyson sphere is a giant sphere that circles the sun. A sphere, or it encircles the sun. It's either a sphere or it's a swarm of crafts that completely encapsulate the sun and harness all of its energy. We'll probably have something like that in the next 100 years. I bet that in 100 years, it'll be a direct pipeline to those sweet, sweet photons. And those photons will be powering our bases on other planets and moons, and it'll all be AI automated, and it'll be functioning flawlessly. But anyway, I got way off the rails there with automation and AI. So, so I don't know. The reason I keep talking about AI, I know this is supposed to be about technology from the 1920s to today, but AI is one of the most powerful things emerging right now. They're building these massive AI computational centers right now all over the world. And it's going to really, really ramp up and change the way that we're going to see some insane technological changes over the next 5 years that are going to be mind-bending. And there will be ecological ramifications. I watched this video that was talking about how it takes, for every like 20 to 30 questions you ask ChatGPT, it takes like 5 milliliters of clean water, because they have to use liquid cooling to cool all of these computational systems. And it has to be clean. It can't be dirty, because it would clog up the systems. And these supercomputers are running at such high rates that they get ridiculously hot. So the water has to be funneled in, has to be piped in, has to be cooled, and it has to shoot through all of the computer systems. And just that right now is becoming an issue. It's becoming a problem. It's something that these big tech companies are having to address, because we already have a water crisis on Earth going on. So it's like 5 milliliters per person. Like, if you're on ChatGPT a lot and you're asking it like questions throughout your day, if every person, and we'll just say the United States, is asking ChatGPT 25 questions a day, over 300 million people, 5 milliliters of water per person, that's a lot of water. And realistically, I mean, in the coming years, it'll be more than that, because the automation of AI, it's already integrated into our devices. Like, you use it when you edit a photo, or some people, it's already integrated into their computers, into the microchips in their computers, and like, it's already being integrated into our systems, and we're using it when we Google something and you get that little AI blurb at the top. That's using some of this liquid. So basically anytime you're engaging with a lot of technology, you're using water to cool these AI systems. It's something we're going to have to figure out how to mitigate in the future. So in the 1920s, we were really just seeing automation start to arise. We had things like this company, A.O. Smith Corporation. They built and operated a fully automated auto frame manufacturing plant in the late 1920s. And then AT&T began advising its operating companies to automate telephone operation in the late 1920s as well. And that replaced most local operators' functions. Can you imagine living in that world where you would make a phone call, and on the other, like, you'd pick up your phone, and I don't know what they hit. I think they probably hit like 0 to get the operator, and then the operator would answer and be like, "Oh, who are you trying to call?" And then they'd literally take a wire out of a wall and plug it into the line that it needed to go to. That is wild. Talk about automation. Talk about how far we've come with that. Like, now you just quickly Google, like, I need to call, like, whatever, this pizza place, and you Google it in your phone, and you just hit a button and it goes. It's all wireless. There's no human. From point A to point B, there's really no human involved until you get, the human on the other line. But it used to be you had to talk to someone. You had to be like, "I'm trying to call this number, patch me in. Let me get patched in." And they'd be like, "Okay." That was someone's job. Like, that would be a wild job. Just moving wires all day, taking calls, moving wires, connecting people to other people and businesses. So that's an example of how automation has taken jobs. Henry Ford, of course, this is like one of the most famous ones, but Henry Ford introduced the moving assembly line method of production to car manufacturing, which automated a lot of parts of car assembly. And there were fears. This is the plus side. This is the lighter side of this, where automation does take jobs. And there were fears back when Henry Ford was introducing all of this assembly and things were becoming more automated in the 20s, that people were going to be unemployed. There was going to be a mass unemployment due to this automation. But the 20s was a decade that ultimately had economic prosperity, because all of these new sectors arose around emerging technologies and around emerging automation, and the average family was actually better off. And that's what we have to keep in mind currently moving forward with technology. We're going to see it take jobs, but we're also going to see it create so many new jobs as well. And we can't be afraid of the progress, and we can't be afraid of the change. There's a balance that needs to happen. Anytime there's progress, there's a balance that needs to happen. But there will be new jobs to do. There will be holes to dig. There will be wires to install. There will be pipes to lay. There will be concrete to pour. There will be all of that. And we need to move forward with the technology. And we need to be able to adapt to the new and exciting things that technology brings. There's going to be, there's going to be a displacement of workers, but then there will be new jobs opening up. It'll be a flux that's happening for into infinity, forever. That's just how technology works. Let's kind of shift gears here and talk a little bit about entertainment. 100 years ago, radio was the big thing. And I can't imagine what that must have been like. Like we've seen it in movies and shows and stuff where it's like, gather around for this evening's radio broadcast. We've got, it's like, and it would be someone in front of a microphone telling a story that a family would gather around and listen to. And there's something really wholesome about that, about the simplicity of that, about how you would have to use your imagination. We do it today with podcasts, and we do it today. We are still doing a version of that, but that was the primary version of entertainment 100 years ago. People were just starting to get like really, really, really basic black and white TVs, but overall, radio was the big dog. Radio was what people were dialing into, literally and figuratively. And I love that. Something about that is really charming to me. They also had silent movies. I don't need to explain how far we've come since then, obviously. We've got IMAX and we've got interactive. We've got virtual reality and augmented reality. We've gone in the last 100 years from silent movies with just like very rough movies. I don't want to say rough, but the quality was very below 360p, and a text would come up, like white text over black, and it would be like, this is what they're saying, and you'd read it, and then there'd be another scene, and then another text box would come up and be like, this is what they're saying now. That's how people engage with movies. But like I said, now we have virtual reality, augmented reality. If you really want to travel back in time and appear to be a god, just bring a smartphone and a VR headset, and you will be worshipped. They will kiss your feet, and they will feed you grapes as they paint portraits of you and make statues in your honor. You'll be regarded as the highest being in the universe. I think that's probably what happened in Egypt. Some people probably figured out time travel. They went back, to Egypt they're like, let's check out the pyramids. They went back from the future, and they brought some kind of like sick technology with them, and it elevated Egypt's progress too. And that's how they were able to develop technologies even faster. And those people, whoever brought that back, they lived like kings. Maybe they got stuck there, and they couldn't get back. But it would suck. But also, you'd get to live like a king in Egypt. And that was probably pretty tight. Like, it'd probably be pretty tight if you went back to the 20s and lived like a king too. You'd get a lot of there'd be a lot of luxuries to be had. So what I'm trying to say here is, when you get when you have access to a time machine, number one, just be careful, because the whole space-time continuum, who knows what sort of time rifts and problems we're all going to have going back and forth, opening up different timelines, fracturing this timeline. It's happening right now, infinitely into infinity, but just be mindful of what tech you're bringing with you. What other I have a little list here of other great improvements that came from the 1920s. We had innovations in chemical technology. We had improvements in the transmission of electricity. Like Tesla was doing some really big work during the late 1800s, but he also did a ton of work with wireless electricity transfer and creating many inventions in the 1900s as well. I'd actually like to do a whole episode just on Tesla someday, actually. I think that'd be a really fun one, a really cool deep dive to do, and I'll probably be doing that in the not too distant future. And just for clarification, of course, I mean Nikola Tesla, not Tesla, not Elon Musk Tesla. F that guy. But they all in the 1920s, they also had the expansion of central electric power stations, and they had the operation of new high-pressure boilers, electrical substations, and steam turbines. So where they weren't necessarily coming up with super sophisticated technologies, they were building infrastructures that would make the development of super sophisticated technologies possible. They were really refining the nuts and bolts of of the foundation that we needed to move forward in the 1920s with like I said, things like boilers and steam turbines and just generating large amounts of energy and collecting that energy and utilizing it in a productive way. They were very focused on that in the 1920s. And many of these advancements also came about because World War I had just ended and the global stage was still like really shaky. And every country was looking to up their technology game to make sure they could survive and make sure that when the next big war happened, they'd be ready. And it's what we do today as well. Although wars aren't really fought in the same way, there's a lot more drones, there's a lot more psyops, there's a lot more hacking. However, all those things are intertwined with technological advancements. They all move in tandem, just kind of in a different way. Like we advance technology for national security and national defense and things like that, but it's just in a different way than they were doing it back in the 20s. We're working more with computers and like super sophisticated technology that is driven, like I said, by war and national security, just like they were back then too. Like back in the 20s, they were maybe looking to make the suspensions on Jeeps for war transport more smooth. And today we're looking at how we can make drones more stable in the air or make more secure information networks that can't be hacked. War pushes technology. And no matter how technologically involved or technologically advanced we become, security and defense will always, I feel like, be even when you look at it on a super large scale. Once we have the sun encased in a Dyson sphere, we've got our bases on all the planets. We're going to be looking at solar system security. Like, what if another life form tries to invade our solar system? What are our defense systems looking like? And that's going to push technology. It always will. And also on the flip side of that, it's really weird how a lot of the technologies that get created to fight wars, a lot of the times get used in the medical fields or education or even in art and entertainment as well. For instance, like photography, radio, video, computer graphics, even video games. Many of the advancements of these technologies are because of war and defense. It's just wild how that works. How technology can grow into something beautiful or develop into something beautiful from kind of a scary or weird origin, and how technology and art are heavily intertwined, and technology and war and art are heavily intertwined. I've got this little story that I've told on another episode. I can't remember what episode I told it on, but I have told it on here at least once, maybe twice, so I'll keep it super brief. During World War II, there's this guy named Henry Rhodes. He joined the Army Air Corps, where he taught fellow servicemen and entertained wounded airmen. And the Army Air Corps kind of like commissioned him to bring these small portable pianos he had designed to bedridden patients in 1942. So he built this, or they commissioned him to bring this piano that he had built, this 29-note keyboard that was built using aluminum tubing from a B-17. It was this like xylophone instrument, and the Army Air Corps called it the lap model piano. And after the war, this guy founded the Rhodes Piano Corporation. So I know that was a little clunky, the way that I told that, but essentially a pianist gets commissioned to do bedside piano lessons with this piano that he made out of scrap plane parts, and he creates this really beautiful instrument, the Rhodes piano, the Rhodes electric piano, and he goes on to change kind of music history. And it was all because of war and building technologies off of literal plane parts and building a new kind of piano that was meant to be therapy for these bedridden patients. And I just think it's a prime example of how war influences technology and art. It's also just kind of a really touching story, and I think that Henry Rhodes deserves. I think that Henry Rhodes deserves his story deserves a movie adaptation. Okay, I've got just a couple more things before we get into the last segments of the show. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how housing and domestic life changes have changed because of technology over the last 100 years. Most people are paying rent digitally now. You know, they transfer numbers from one digital account to another, and a lot of renters never even see their landlords or like rental companies. They just like fill out a form online, and then the entity that's doing the renting does a background check or a credit check, and everything's automated. It's like this with finding a house too. You might see like a realtor, but a lot of the people on the back end are like, it's just this automated system. And I feel like back in the day, not even that long ago, not even in the 20s, but just like in the last like 30 years, it was important for landlords or rental agencies to meet their renter and kind of like catch a vibe. And I'm not really sure if they care. I'm not sure if renters care, rental companies or landlords or whatever care as much anymore. They more so rely on automated background checks and credit information to weed out people that they don't want renting from them. Technology has really, really worked in the rental agencies and landlords' favor in terms of streamlining things, but I think it really sucks for a lot of people on the other end of it. Like people who have just had a hard time and they don't get a chance to explain their situation. Like they might have a bad credit score, or maybe they have like something on their background check that comes back with like a red flag, and those things, so much of that can get lost in translation with these automated systems. When the rental agencies or landlords can't meet the people who are trying to rent or buy from them, they don't get a chance to explain themselves and be like, yo, I just, my mom had cancer last year. I had to take out all these loans, and then I got in this car accident and they said it was my fault. And then I got this thing on my background now that says I'm like a reckless driver or something, even though I wasn't. They don't have a chance to explain themselves and like really get heard out because of these automated systems. And I bet it's there are a lot of people on the streets because of this. And I feel like it's really it's a big thing that isn't really being talked about. It is being talked about, but there needs to be more awareness about this, how people are literally being put on the streets because they don't have a chance to explain why they might have been put in hard times. Another note here I have is just about family dynamics and living arrangements. And this one's kind of self-explanatory. Like today, kids they can send their mom a text from school like, hey, yo, can you pick me up early? Or kids can text their parents to remember to pick them up something at the grocery store or any of these like modern luxuries. Like we just have these. But back in the day, in the 1920s, if you forgot something at the market or the grocery store, it was a trek to get back. It was a journey. It was a slog. You'd have to spend a ton of time getting back and paying with paper and coins. There weren't any credit cards. There was no cryptocurrency. There was none of that. Just good old fashioned banknotes. And we don't have that luxury. I guess my point here is that just something as simple as that, as forgetting something at the grocery store or at the market, was a way more of a situation than it is today. If we forget something today, it's like, I got to get back in my car and drive back and whatever. Back then, it was like, well, we either are going to go without or we're going to have to like make this another journey on a different day. And modern luxuries can be very taken for granted. And speaking of just kind of like credit cards, I do want to say a little something here about credit as well. Credit as an idea obviously didn't originate in the 1920s. It had been around since the dawn of humanity. Like the concept of, let me borrow this for that, or I'll pay you back with a little something extra in the future, or I'll trade you this for something in the future. Credit has existed for a very, very long time. But in the early 1900s, in America at least, the banks and corporations were really, really ramping it up. Everyone was starting to afford modern luxuries and things that they wouldn't have otherwise been able to afford, and that was because of credit. And it's how a lot of this old money happened in America. Banks and companies were perpetually kind of just ripping, not even kind of, they were perpetually ripping people off and creating an even more intense wealth divide in society. Capitalism, baby. Anyway, I just want to talk about one more thing. I'm going to just briefly talk on it, although it is a really big one. It means a lot to me. Music technology. I'm talking synthesizers, electronic music, hip hop, samplers, the creation of countless genres and subgenres and cultures surrounding electronic music. It's all wild and beautiful, and all of that has really arisen in the last 100 years. This creation of electronic-based music and how we interact with the new technologies, these new music technologies, it's changed everything in the musical landscape. I can imagine. It'd be cool in a lot of ways, like pre-music, I guess I'll say pre-electronic music world would be very interesting. People would like really refine their compositions and really refine their instrumentation, and we're still doing that, but we're doing it in this way that works in tandem with music technologies, and I love it. I'm excited to see how it progresses in the next 100 years. I mean, obviously I won't be here for the next 100 years, but for the rest of my life, I'm excited to see the advancements. And even just in the last 10 years, the amount of advancements I've personally seen inside of my own digital audio workstation, of the kind of sounds that can be generated and emulated, and the way that people are building songs, is blowing my mind. It is insane. I'm excited for the day when you can like put a helmet on, and the helmet like has speakers on the side, and it just starts projecting. It just starts producing the song that's inside your head. Because honestly, the technology is getting that intuitive. It really is. The entrance points to be able to create music is becoming really, what's the word I'm looking for? It's becoming really just open. And I think that that's really cool. It makes music more inviting. And I think anytime you make the creation of music more inviting, it's a good thing. Oh yeah, I also, speaking of music technology, I think the year is 1989 with this, but a fun little factoid here, there was more music generated on a single day in 2024 than the entire year of 1989, which is just crazy. That's how much music we're making as a species. there's so much. I mean, that obviously it has its negative sides to that. There's more like sifting to be done to found the like air quote good music, or music that is more impactful to you. But also it's like, that means there's more musicians out there. That means there's more people engaging with creating music. And I think that that's a good thing overall. Let's get into one of the last segments of the show. This is called Let's Ask AI. Let's ask AI. And I asked AI a pretty simple question. I said, what sort of technological advancements do you see happening in the next century? And AI said, I expect continued automation of AI systems to become more capable and reliable, potentially leading to transformative applications in scientific research, healthcare, education, and other fields. Quantum computing may mature to solve currently intractable problems in areas like materials science and cryptography. Personalized medicine based on genomics could become standard with targeted treatments at the cellular level. We may see major advancements in longevity research and the ability to repair or regenerate damaged tissue and organs. brain-computer interfaces could help treat neurological conditions. I anticipate a transition to predominantly renewable energy sources with major improvements in energy storage and distribution. New technologies for carbon capture and environmental remediation may help address climate change. Nuclear fusion power could potentially become commercially available. We'll likely see expanded human presence in space, including permanent bases on the moon and possibly Mars. Advanced propulsion systems could enable deeper space exploration. Space-based solar power and asteroid mining might become practical. And then the last thing they had to say was they anticipate automatically precise manufacturing and advanced materials like programmable matter or self-healing materials could revolutionize how we make things. 3D printing may evolve to work with a much wider range of materials and applications. That last one's kind of like the, what is it? I think it's called the replicator or the materializer. Is it the replicator? I've talked about it on the show before, but on Star Trek, where they just put in, it's like, I need this much carbon, I need this much nitrogen, I need this much whatever, iron, and I'll make you a pistol. I'll make you a ray gun. And so that'll be cool. Once we all have the 3D printers in our houses and we just are being, all we'll have to do, it's really simple. It's really simple. All we have to do is set up a network of tubing where we get elements shot to our homes. It's like, oh, I'm gonna purchase this amount of nitrogen, and it gets put into a tank, and then I need this amount of carbon over here, and then I keep using those elements for some reason. I don't know why, but then we just hit a button, and it like makes our cup of coffee, like the cup and the coffee all together in the thing, and then we just open the door. We're like, there it is. And whatever we want, we can get whatever we want out of that thing. Oh, you need a banana? Okay, just feed it these elements and then open the door and there'll be a banana in there. Super simple. I also like what AI said about us anticipating a transition to predominantly renewable energy sources. I feel like we don't have another option. I feel like we have to do that. That's the only way to move forward as a species. Let's get into the final segment of the show, and then we'll wrap this thing up. This is just a list of fun facts. And today, the fun facts are simply a list of things that were invented in 1925, 100 years ago. Charles Francis Jenkins achieved the first synchronized transmission of pictures and sounds using 48 lines and a mechanical system. It was a 10-minute film of a miniature windmill in motion, and it was sent across 5 miles in Washington, D.C. The images were viewed by representatives of the Bureau of Standards, the U.S. Navy, and the Department of Commerce, and others. And Jenkins called this the first public transmission of radio vision. October 2nd, 1925, John Logie Baird successfully transmits the first television pictures with a grayscale image in London. November 4th, 1925, Charles F. Brandock files a patent for the Brandock device for measuring shoe sizes. And you've definitely seen this if you've been to a shoe store, or at least I haven't been to a shoe store in a very long time. I buy my shoes online for the most part, but I remember going to a shoe store when I was a kid, and this is those big metal things that you put your feet in, and they have the little sliders, and it tells you right where your shoe size is. That's what this is. Our next invention was invented by Jonas Hesselmann, and he introduced the Hesselmann engine. And this one's a little techie, but basically, to simplify it, the engine is a hybrid engine that ran on both diesel and petrol. And the Hesselmann engine, it typically has a lower efficiency than a diesel engine, but it can run on the same fuels without needing to sustain high compression ratios. So therefore, it could be made smaller and lighter and cheaper. So it wasn't as efficient, but it could it was a bigger workhorse. It could last longer. It could be made cheaper. It was lighter, so they could put it into machines that they weren't otherwise able to put it in. Like I said, the 1920s was a big time of expanding the like physical infrastructure of things and machines and gathering energy and stuff like that. So this was a really important invention. This last fun fact isn't an invention from 1925, but I thought it was definitely a fun and interesting fact that ties in well to the essence of this whole episode. And this is that the QWERTY, QWERTY keyboard layout. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look at the keyboard on your phone right now or the keyboard on your laptop. Go to the top left and then go right, and you'll see that the letters are spelled out. QWERTY. People refer to this often as the QWERTY keyboard. This keyboard layout was made along with the typewriter back in the 1800s. We all know it today in regards to like English keyboards anyway. If you're typing in English, you know the QWERTY keyboard. It started on typewriters. And if you aren't familiar with typewriters, which I'm sure like some people listening aren't, typewriters were these machines with physical buttons that you would press, and the buttons would slam a metal arm down onto a piece of paper. And the metal arm had a stamp on the end that was attached to it, and it would slam the letter with ink onto a piece of paper. And the letter would, after a few key slams, you would get a word. The problem with the typewriter is that these long metal arms would get tangled when the typer would type too fast. They'd get all scrambled up with each other. If you can imagine like trying to type really fast and having all of these overlapping metal arms clicking onto a piece of paper, they would literally get scrambled together. They would get tangled. So in an effort to stop this entanglement, the creator of the typewriter made the QWERTY, QWERTY keyboard layout. And this forced the typer to slow down and search for the next letter so that the metal arms wouldn't get tangled. That's why we have this modern keyboard layout. It's just transition from typewriters to computers to cell phones. And of course we adapted. We've overcome, and now it'd be kind of hard to imagine some other kind of layout for a keyboard. But I just thought this was a truly poetic example of the growing pains of technology and how we interact with it, and how sometimes we need to slow down and reformat, reorganize, and reconfigure things before we trip ourselves up. I'm not saying bring things to a grinding halt or be scared of technology, but we definitely need to be mindful about technology's role in society, in laws, in culture, in art, in medicine, and in the environment. We don't want our metal arms to get tangled. I just want to say, you're doing great. It's 2025. Every day is a gift. Every moment is an opportunity to rethink the way that you're interacting with your reality. It's never too late to start something new. It's never too late to stop an unhealthy habit. I personally feel blessed. And let's start this year off right and remember to love ourselves and those around us. Take small steps when you need to, and take big leaps when you can. The holidays are over, so expect a new episode next week. I'm going to get back onto the weekly grind now that this is the post-holiday 2025 New Year. Let's get into it vibe. So I'm going to be back to posting these episodes weekly. Like I said at the top of the show, like, comment, subscribe, leave a rating, leave a review. I've also got a Patreon. However you support, thank you. Infinite thank yous. Remember to check on your mental health and to check on the mental health of your loved ones. Until next time. Bye.
Thoughts. Analog thoughts.
Analog thoughts.
Analog thoughts.